podcast. Let's begin our podcast. I guess, right? I mean, we can begin, then I can cut the shit out of it, right?
Right.
Because God only knows what we're going to say. Okay, let's start. This is the podcast, folks. We're going to have some crazy people on here. Sean Harrison returning for at least his third or fourth engagement. Wes Gear, can't keep him away. He's like a homeless guy. And then we have Steve, your mom's favorite knife maker is his last name. It's really long last name. It's fucking ridiculous. But
it's Italian.
He is your mom's favorite knife maker. And so Callari Customs is bringing it to town. And we're going to talk with Steve because we want to know his journey, his inner soul, how he got to where he is today, and what inspiration him to become a Nepo Nazi racist fascist.
Yes.
Whatever. Okay.
All the above.
I just love it when they say that and you go, I must have took some really big money away from them. If they
fuck. I got to Google it half the time to figure out what they're saying because they come up with new words. I'm like, what is Nepo, fascist? Got to figure it out. I'm like, should I be upset or not?
That was new. I love Nepo, though. It's just, it punched. It was good. And it was like, wow. And that's what Elon Musk is. And I wish I could be rich enough to be a godless Nepo Nazi like him.
Did you see he's got another kid? He knocked up some lady. Did you see that?
Oh, yeah.
No.
He knocked up some other girl. He's on like his 14th kid or some shit. Swear to God, he knocked up.
As long as I don't have to pay the child support through my tax.
Dude, that dude is that dude is single-handedly saving like the nation, like the birth rate. Like he's compensating for like 5 people.
Oh my God. You know
those are some good genes.
That's a good point. He's putting a lot of genius out in the Yeah, he is, isn't he? He's got new people coming in now. God only knows what those kids will do. Woo.
Well, one of them's trans, so that's a lost cause. But I mean, that's like 1 out of 12 or whatever. Like that's a good ratio.
1 out of 12.
Well, back in the day, that's why we had lots of kids because some would get kicked by a horse and killed, like one would get run over. So you got to get a bunch of them so a few make it out. So kids don't get kicked by horses anymore. They turn trans. So it's
on a video.
Same thing. They're dead.
Okay, Steve. Tell us about what got you into knives. I mean, I know you went into cooking. I guess you could go through a little bit of that and then say how that transported you into blades and that kind of thing. Yeah,
I guess. Yeah, that's because that's really where it started. So it was okay. So for those that don't know, I was a chef for a little over 15 years. Like an actual chef, not like I ran a Starbucks. Like I was an actual chef who was on a line and ran and wrote menus and my name was on it and all that kind of noise. It started when I was like 15 and I got a job as a dishwasher because I'm from Florida at basically like a little crab seafood place. And I'm not one of those guys that had like aspirations to be a chef or anything like that. I just got a job there and all the dudes that work there were like degenerate, ugly, tattooed, like dudes who had like fucking knives and they cut real fast and they did blow and drank and fucked all the hot waitresses. And I was like, this looks great. I can do this. Like I'm not, I don't play guitar or anything, so I can't be a rock star. But if those dudes can get those girls, well then I can do that. And then I had a knack for it. I was naturally good at it, and I took to it real well. And that's why I first saw like a knife where I was like, whoa, what the fuck is that? One of the guys on there was a black dude, and he had this. I don't know if you know what a breaking knife is. It's like it's a very long and it kind of curves up, right? It's much what's called like a butcher's knife as well. It's used for we don't really use them now, but it's used for breaking down like big cuts of beef. And I saw that thing and it looked like a fucking Prince of Persia like sword. I was just like, what is that thing? And he would just be whipping through beef like it was nothing. And I was like, man, that's fucking cool. And then I remember watching like Iron Chef when I was like around that time, like the OG Iron Chef when it was in Japan. and they had this guy on there, one of the Iron Chefs, and they had him at a culinary school. And they had an apple in front of him and an apple in front of one of the students. And she had a peeler, and all he had was a paring knife. And they're like, you're going to race. And I'll never forget it. He took that paring knife, and he just went, and it looked like, the globe, the orange peel globe, when you have a globe laid out. He peeled that thing within, 3 seconds with that paring knife. And I was like, how the fuck do you do that? The skills, it was the knives and the skills. I want to be able to do that. That was like magic. I was like, I have no idea how he peeled an apple. It went so fast. It was like a magician's trick. So that's where I got into really, really liking knives. I always carried pocket knives, but I didn't know anything outside of a Victorian, a Swiss Army knife existed. So and that's what that ended up getting me into steel. Because then I started buying knives, and they would never hold an edge, and they were dog shit. And lo and behold, Walmart $12 knives aren't very great. So then I started looking into Wusthof, because that's the you go through the mall and there's the Williams Sonoma place, and you're like, well, you spend a bunch of money on those, and these don't hold an edge worth of shit. I'm like, what the fuck is that about? So then I started looking into steel and how that happened, and that got me into Japanese knives, and that's where I started learning about. That's why I was so weird when I got into pocket knives. Is in Japanese cutlery, if you go to look up one of those knives to buy, it's going to tell you the spine thickness, it's going to tell you the grind, it's going to tell you who made it, it's going to tell you the Rockwell hardness, it's going to tell you the steel type, and then you'd go to when I got into pocket knives, it would be like company, steel, that's it. And I'm like, okay,
stainless, right? It wouldn't say anything.
Yeah. Or you might get Austin, and you'd be like how thick is it? How's it ground? How hard is it? These were normal things because you could judge. You're like, okay, this is what I'm looking for. If I'm looking for a daily driver where I'm chopping a lot, I want a higher hardness steel, and I want maybe I want blue steel versus white. So that's what got me nose diving into that, into metallurgy and all that, getting all corny with it. And then the pocket knife thing, I went online, and then I realized there was this whole online, people were talking about pocket knife. I had a Kershaw leak that a chef gave to me, and I carried that thing for a decade, and I thought that was that was just it. That's where it ended. That was and what's funny is I carried that. That's the reason I hate Wharncliffes, and I hate assisted knives, was because of that fucking knife. But it was the only pocket knife I had. And back then it was $35, which is a lot of fucking money for a knife. And I mean, when I'm telling you, I used to break fish down when I go fishing with that knife. I've broken the tip off that thing 50 times. I would try to jimmy the door open if it got locked with that knife. I would just spray lithium grease into the fucking top of the pivot and be like, all right, good to go. Go back to work with it. I beat the fuck out of that thing. But that's kind of where it delved into, and then I got into the learning of finding the whole pocket knife world, and then Spyderco and their whole education thing they had, where you could look up all these different steels, and I was like, what? And I remember the first time, I think it was LMAX, looking at an LMAX data sheet, and I was like, what? I was like, how do they fit this much shit inside of it? It doesn't make any, because I came from carbon steels with Japanese knives. Right. I had a very limited, and then I see LMAX, and I was like, this has to be the greatest fucking knife steel that's ever happened. There's no way anything can beat this. I don't even know how they got it in there. How did they get all that chromium in it? It doesn't even make sense. So that led me down that whole, rabbit hole of learning. And then, then it was, what was it, December 2020? No, it was July. Somewhere around June, July. There's a guy who I used to be friends with who owns a knife shop here in Georgia. And I walked in there one day into his knife shop, and he was like, hey, man, I'm getting rid of my grinder. It's this Grizzly grinder. Do you want it? And I'd always kind of toyed with the idea of making knives. And he's like, I'll sell it to you for $400. And I was like, all right, fuck it. So I bought it from him. The thing's heavy as fuck. Loaded it up, bro. And that's when I was like, okay, I'm going to have some fun making knives. I really wanted to make myself a kitchen knife. And that's where that started to go in that direction. And then it was December. It was the week before Christmas of 2022. And I remember I had a sales meeting. So I left the kitchen, and I was a food sales rep for 4 years. And then I remember I get pulled into the office. They're like, hey, I need to talk to you at the office. I get to the office. I walk in. my district manager, the VP of sales, and the HR lady. And I was like, this isn't going to end well. So I looked around, and then they laid me off that Friday right there, like the Friday before Christmas. And I remember looking at my bench, and I was like, well, I had some orders. People were giving me, because of YouTube. People knew me from YouTube, so guys were like giving me a chance. So So I was like, okay, I had a bunch of orders. And I was like, well, you know what? I got like 10 of them here. Like that's, let me finish these out, and then I'll go look for a job. And then that same day, like 2 hours later, like my landlord called me up and told me he cheated on his wife and needed the house back. So this all happened in like 3 hours. So I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna go figure this out. Wait for Christmas. Obviously I don't want to tell my wife this, because she's gonna freak the fuck out. So I was like, I'm gonna wait till after Christmas. I got some money saved up. I can deal with the bills and everything, and I'll just do these knives. And then the orders kept coming in, and I kept making them, and I kept just all day, all night, and then eventually I was just like, I'm gonna give this a shot. I'm gonna see if I can, because I was making enough to where I could kind of like keep the rent paid and everything. I was like, okay, I get the bills covered. Plus, I had some saved up, so I was like, I can do this for at least 3 or 4 months before I have to like go get another gig. And back then, I could get even now, getting a job as a chef is like, it's like this. Everybody needs help right now. So I was like, I'm not really super worried. Yeah, I'm not super worried about it. So I was like, let me give this a shot and see what happens. And that was like 2 years ago. And then here we are today on the podcast with 2 dudes who have some of my knives.
Wow. So
I'll be adding one too, Steve.
Huh? What do you say?
He said he wants to add one too. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Which is crazy because I met Sean at fucking Blade Show, like in the pit one day, and like we ended up hanging out, and then that's like 5 or 6 years, 6 years ago or something.
5, 6 years ago, yeah.
Yeah.
And then I didn't even know you were making knives, and I stumbled across you on the table. What was that? 22 or 23? 23 maybe.
23 probably. Yeah. Yeah.
That was the first year you had your table, right?
Yeah. It was like 23. That was another thing. Like I had a knife maker buddy of mine.
All night and drive there, and just so you were setting up like some shit like that. Were you like?
Oh, dude, I'm bro. Like, so this even happened this last year. Yeah, no bullshit. I did. How do I say this? It's like like any business is like this. Like when you first start a business. You try, like there's like no money, right? It's like money's coming in, like you're barely like even now, like I'm not really like above. It's been 2 years, and I'm still just sort of kind of getting there. So like money comes in, money goes out. So I didn't have like enough money to be like, okay, I'm going to take 3 weeks and make knives or anything like that. And I wasn't fast enough at the time to make knives as I was fulfilling orders to keep the bills paid and the lights on. So basically, what happened was Blade Show started on Friday. I woke up Monday morning and was like, all right, I need to make 15 knives. And then I just didn't sleep until Thursday night going into Friday morning at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
And I was working 2 days a week at the shop at Pop's Knife Supply. So I was working there too, and I would get off and I was using their shop too. So I was doing that. Yeah, then I passed out for like 4 hours, woke up, came to Blade Show. And was like, all right, game time. Like, but that's chef stuff right there. That's like that 7th gear that I have from doing all those years of like 20-hour days, which is not a fucking good thing because I lean on it like a fucking crutch, and I'm not going to be able to do it forever. That's it's a big fucking problem. When you can procrastinate and get away with it, you keep procrastinating because you get away with it, and it's not a good thing. It even happened to me last year. Like this last year at Blade Show, the kitchen knives. Like I think I had like 15 kitchen knives I brought, and I brought a bunch of EDC knives. Those 15 knives didn't exist the Wednesday before.
Wow.
So in like 36 hours, I made those, which is not what you want to do. I don't want to be like it's just not. And again, I live an hour from Atlanta, so it's like I can book it there real quick. You know what I mean? So it's like I lean on that way too much. Like I couldn't. Like there was a guy from Australia, a friend of mine, John. Kraken. Yeah, Kraken.
There you go.
I got one.
Yeah, fuck it. That guy, dude, I was laughing because he hit me up, and apparently to come over from Australia, they need all kinds of.
He shipped all those knives to you, right? And
he was telling me all these visas and shit, and I was like, bro, fuck that. We're American. We don't play with the government. Ship that shit to my house, and then I'm 50 minutes away, or I can either drive it to you, or you can come to my house, whatever you want to do. So this motherfucker had 3 boxes of knives in my house like a month before the show. Before the show.
Yeah. We hung out with him the whole weekend last year. Yeah.
Oh, dude, him and his buddy Rob.
Yeah.
Rob
got so fucked up he didn't even make it to the table.
Bro, Rob is a caricature of an Australian guy. He's like Boomhauser from King of the Hill, but Australian.
Mm-hmm.
They were over here for hours. And there you go. Keep in mind. So he shows up to my house, right? I'm like, I have nothing done. Like, I'm in the middle of this. And, of course, I just fuck off for like 5 hours with them and put myself way in the hole. But Rob is, dude, of course. I'm just over here, and he's like, you probably should get back to work. And I'm like, I'll get back, whatever. I'll figure it out 2 days before or the day before or whatever. So Rob, I love John and Rob so much. Like, they are the most fucking Australian. But Rob, I couldn't understand a word Rob was saying. Right. Rob would sit there, and like every last word, I would kind of understand that. I'd look at John, and John would laugh. Yeah, I was like, can you interpret? And like Rob's laughing his fucking ass off. Because I'm like, he's like Boomhauser from King of the Hill, but Australian. Like, you get like every third word he says. Yeah, they showed up here, which was fucking awesome. But yeah, he had his shit done like a month in advance. And I'm like, see, that's a real knife maker. You see, like, that's a professional. You see, like, he's done, he's ready, because he had this whole production to get up here. I'm sitting here, his boxes are over here, and I'm like, you know what? I'm a piece of shit. Like, what the fuck? Like, it's 2 days before Blade Show, and I'm hustling, and this dude had him done. And his knives are amazing too. He has phenomenal knives. Yeah, they're super nice.
I mean, don't sell yourself short. This is a nice knife. And I told Steve I want MagnaCut blade. I mean, you order it however you want it. Just let Steve know what you want. Order it how you want. But I said MagnaCut and G10 because I like G10 because it's rugged, it's there, and it's not gonna mess up a piece of shit. So I love this, but I mean, every little nice and thin behind the edge. And guess what? Earlier today I checked it and I go, I don't think I've sharpened this knife in almost a year.
Probably not.
I felt the edge and I go, it still feels pretty sharp actually. But, I mean, I ran it on the strop with some of that gunny juice, right? That I got from Sean. Or did Sean let me do their thing. So I stropped it up on gunny juice. And, I mean, it's still.
Well, it's funny you say that. I've had mine over 2 years. I've only sharpened it once, and it still slices paper. I just checked it before this show. Mine's in... chef cut, I think you said chef cut.
Yeah, chef cut.
Yeah, but man, I mean, I've sharpened it once. I put a 16-degree edge on it, which is probably about what it was when I got it. But you could barely see the bevel. I mean, that's how thin the geometry is on those knives. Like crazy.
That's why it still cuts.
One time sharpening in 2 years, it's still cutting. Yeah.
I mean, Roseanne came to me one day and says, "I think I screwed up that knife from Steve." And I go, what do you mean? No, I think I messed it up. I don't know what I did. And I go, what? I mean, what? Did you break the blade in half or what? No, it's
dishwasher.
Discolored, or something like that. And it's like,
didn't she run it through the dishwasher? You said once.
It's not discolored. I mean, it could get discolored. I'm sure it could be, but you know what? I wiped it right off, and whatever it wasn't there permanently. So. It still looks good.
It's hard to stain MagnaCut. It's super hard to stain that stuff. You don't want to stain. It's hard to etch it.
It feels good in the hand. Really, I mean, and this is a good question. Tell us how you determine the geometry of a knife you want to make as a chef's knife. Why and how?
It was all trial and error. So I know what I want the knife to do. Right? I know. So the goal is like, when I make a knife, and I do this when I go to shows, I'll bring a cutting board. And this happens like 99% of the time. People go to cut like an onion or a potato, whatever I have on there, and they'll hit the board, and they'll keep pushing because they don't realize they hit the board. I want the knife to drop through the food effortlessly and not stick to the blade. That's the goal. You're always riding that line. So I'm not even joking, I took a piece of paper, and I sat there, and I had an idea. I know what I wanted it to feel like because back when I was a chef, I used to be on chefknivesToGo.com. It was like one of the only websites I went to, and there was a forum. And they were always super, super interested if there were any professionals on there, and they would do these pass-around groups. And you would get a knife, and then you could use it for however long you wanted it, and then just give feedback on it. So I got to put my hands on a lot of different knives with a lot of different styles, a lot of different geometries. And so through that, like I know which ones that I loved and that I wanted to use and that I wanted it to perform like. So I just literally, I sat here when I was doing my first chef knives, once I could grind a bevel somewhat, is I would grind it down. First, it was how thin can I get the edge before it like fails. So I had to find that out. Then what it was is it's not just the behind the edge thickness; it's up back there. So it's not just here. I got like sun going on over here. Hold on. Let's see, can we get the sun? There we go. Scooch, scooch. Okay, so it's not just behind the edge; it's all the rest up this way. Yeah. Right. This whole thing matters too, especially for food separation. So I just sat there and I ground it, and I would measure with calipers, see how it cut. Grind it some more, measure calipers, see how it would cut. Grind, okay, then I'm happy with it. Then I would literally take it and whack it into a 2x4 and see if the edge would fail. Not like hammer it, but like literally smack it, like if someone was going to hit it in the edge of a cutting board and see what the edge did. And then figure out the spot, the sweet spot, and then write it all down. I have measurements for every single knife on how I want it ground and every single thickness of the blade. Because the blade stock also matters too. The thicker the blade stock, the more separation you can get, but also the less effortless it'll feel. So there's always like that kind of middle spot you're trying to play with. So it was just a fuck ton of trial and error and a fuck ton of thrown away knives, like just a ton. Like I knew what it was like when I cook. Like when you start cooking for a long time, you start getting good at it. You see what the dish looks like, and then you make it happen. With this, I already knew what I want the knife to do, so I just had to figure out how to make it happen. So that part was just a lot of trial and error. I knew what I wanted. I just had to figure out what those exact measurements were to get it to drop and then get good food release, and not like everything stick up on the blade, which is part of the convexing.
Right.
Hollow.
I saw you do a video once too where you actually dulled the knife, proved it was dull, and you were still cutting a bunch of potatoes and shit, and it was cut just as good with no edge. You know? Right.
Well, that was my barometer. It's like I started playing. It's funny because like my buddy Alex, Outdoors 55, he saw that and he's done a bunch of videos about that. I actually have to ship his knife to him. I'm making him a knife that I've broken twice now. I've broken his knife twice now. I had to redo it because that's my life. It was once I got, because I knew the geometry from other knives I've used, how the blade's ground will affect the cutting performance more than the actual edge. The edge just gets the cut started. So I knew if I could get a knife to cut, obviously cutting like a tomato is going to be almost impossible if you have no actual edge on it. But something like a potato or an onion that's thicker and will bind up more, if I can get it to cut through that without an edge, well then I'll have like people like you or LTK who will be like, I never have to sharpen my knife. Like I joke around with people and I'm like, it has unlimited edge retention with vegetables. Yeah. Because even if it's dull, it's still gonna pass through. That was, and then when I did that, it was funny. So many people hit me up after I did that because they were like, guys thought I was full of shit and I was bullshitting and I was like lying or editing it or whatever. And I'm like, no, it's not like magic. It's just the edges is the geometry is fine enough to where it can pass through onions or potatoes or peppers or carrots or something like that. Something without like a thick skin, without it actually having an edge.
So, I mean, how do you figure out, I mean, because you make different knives for different purposes, right?
Yes.
And different kitchen knives do different things. So how many different type of geometries or different types of functional kitchen knives do you make?
So okay. So for instance, this is a big thing. Like you said, you get to pick like whenever I'm doing a custom order. So I've always made fun of custom knife makers for this. It's not better or worse. I don't know why guys get hung up on this, but a custom knife is only custom when it's made for the customer. That's the whole point of something being custom, right? So if when a knife maker they'll make a drop of knives, like a bunch of knives, and then they sell them, it's not a custom knife. It's I made the knife and you're buying it. When you call me up and you say I want blue handles with brown liners and I want Magna Cut, that's custom made for LTK. It's not, and again, it's not better or worse, but to me, that's the benefit if you're going to go to a custom maker, And there's a lot of headaches that come with it, but I'll ask the person, what are you going to do with it? So for kitchen knives, are you going to be cutting frozen shit? Just be honest. I don't give a shit. First thing I ask, are you married? Wow. I swear to fucking God, do you have a girlfriend that you live with? Why? Because it'll end up in the dishwasher. If it ends up in the dishwasher, I'm gonna give you. It happens in my house. I'm gonna steer you towards stainless. Because some guys will be like, I want a Hamon with a carbon steel, and I'm like, are you married? Why? Because your wife's gonna leave it wet and she's gonna fuck it up. And I'm just telling you this. Yeah. So just go stainless. It's neither. It doesn't matter one difference. It's not gonna affect the price like in any meaningful way. Like unless we go like Magna Cut. But other than that, like Nitro V is just as good as Chef Cut in as far as like the edge it'll take and all that kind of stuff. So let's figure that out first. Then will you do some stupid shit? Just tell me and I'll adjust the grind accordingly. You're not hurting my feelings. I don't want you to have a broken knife. Is my thing. Same with a fixed blade. If some guy hits me up and is like, hey, I want that Allegiant model. I'm like, okay, it's a camp style knife. Are you going to baton with it? Well, maybe. Okay, then I'll thicken up the grind a little bit. Again, it's not much. People will be shocked, and I'm going to do a video on this, at how thin you can make something with a decent heat treat and do abhorrent things to it and it not break. So what are you going to do with the knife? So if I'm making, let's say, a boning knife, like a Honosuke, and this is going to the general public. Like, let's say I'm going to a blade show. Or not even blade show. Let's say this is a local thing. Like, I go to a local show, and these are regular-ass people that are going to pick this up. Regular-ass women that are going to pick this up. They're going to do stupid shit. So that knife is going to be ground a little bit thicker to where I know it's not going to break. The tip's going to be a little thicker, the whole grind. It's still going to cut 1,000 times better than any fucking Walmart Wustop they have, or Hinkles. But I'm going to make it thicker. If it's a knife guy, and he's like, no, I want this thing to just be an absolute razor blade. Done. I'll make a razor blade out of it. You know what I mean? So I'm always, again, I just want people to be happy with what they buy from me, because it's a couple $100, a lot of fucking money for a knife. So I just ask specific. That's why whenever you see me sell stuff when I do a drop, I list all the statistics. This knife is 100,000s at the tip. It is 5,000. It's barely it's less than 2 sheets of paper thick behind the edge. This is 66. It's hard and it's thin. So you know when you buy this fucking knife, if you go whack into a bamboo tree with it and you chip it, you know what this is. That's on you. You know what I mean? But if it's a cut, again, so I'm always, so as far as like geometries, there's like my standard line, if it's going to go out to the public, that's one. If I'm going to be an all-out slicer, that's a different one. If it's a fishing knife or like a knife that's going to see abuse, that's a little bit different. They're just slight. It's really just slight thicknesses in the behind the. And when I'm talking slight, I'm talking if a guy's going to do, let's say he's ordering a fillet knife, right? And I know this guy's just going to run it through ribs all day on like whatever, like snapper, right? Something with thicker ribs. The difference between a knife guy and the regular public would be like I would keep that knife at like 10 or 12,000. So to the rest of behind the edge, to the rest of the knife world, that's wicked thin, like crazy thin. You won't to find a production knife that's 10 or 12,000 behind the edge is like not even, your Spyderco PM2 is twice that thick. So that's the difference. When I say I'll thicken it up, it's very tiny amounts, but technically 10,000 behind the edge is twice as thick as 5. Right? It's 100% thicker. So while that is still an amazing cutting knife, it's got a lot more beef, and it's also, again, if this guy's going to be, if this is like a regular dude who wants because I use a fillet knife because this just happened last week, who wants this like for his brother who's going to be down there beating the shit out of this thing, I'm going to do a flat grind as opposed to a hollow. For that exact reason is it's like I said, it's not just what's behind the edge, it's what's behind the edge. So if I have the same knife and it's 10,000 behind the edge with a flat versus 10,000 behind the edge with a hollow, up back behind that edge is, so the hollow, if you go 1/8 of an inch above that edge bevel, it'll be 10,000s. If you do that with a flat grind, it'll be 20. So there's a lot more meat up behind that edge. So if he's going to rail that into some fucking, if he wants to be a dumb fuck and rail it through some rib bones on a grouper, which are basically chicken bones, he's going to be okay. He might get a little tiny nick or roll at the edge, but it's not going to like take a plug out of the goddamn thing that he's going to call me up and I'm going to have to fix it for him. So it's a lot of it's just dependent on if it's customs, it's exactly what the person's going to do. If it's to the public, it's a little different. Each knife is a little different, and then what I put on like drops those are going to be like the thinnest, right? Like, or unless I make something like, which I don't really do, but if I was like, I'm going to make like a bruiser camp knife, then that would be, thicker because that's the intention. So it's all, I've always hated the whole, like, let's take the lowest common denominator type shit, which, that's what we do in America. We like lowest common denominator. That's what we're going to appeal to, right? I don't do that. I'm gonna take like the least common denominator. I'm gonna make knives for performance. I'm gonna make knives for that people want for specifically what they want. If I'm selling a steadfast and it's ground like a wafer, that's not for the guy that wants to use it as a kickstand. You know what I mean? So it's just depending on the situation, depending on where I'm at, depending on the person. So there's a few different geometries and different grinds.
You have names for your knives? I mean, you said if I'm going to make a steadfast, if I'm going to do...
Yeah. So, like the EDC knives I do. So, like a chef knife is a steadfast. Yes, that's a steadfast right there.
Yeah.
That's like a sheath. Yeah. So that's a steadfast. This is like this sun is like attacking me. I'm trying to get... Let me try and get this out of the way. So we're not... It's like following me. There we go. Yeah, so when it comes to the EDC knives, those I have names for. So each model has a name. But when it comes to like kitchen knives, like I just name them whatever they are: chef knife, slicer, sujihiki. My style is a little more Japanese because that's what I used and what I liked when I was a chef. So like yours is a 6-inch chef. He's got like a Gyoto, I think, and then the Steadfast. So I
got. Let me see. This is the chef, and then I got a Santoku.
Yeah, the Santoku. Yeah, exactly. Yep.
And then I don't know what you call this one. I mean, we paring knife, but it's a little big. But I love it. I use this probably more than anything.
That's you see. It's funny you say that. I call that my utility knife.
Utility knife. That's what you call it.
That knife was like a personal pet project because I hate utility knives. I fucking hate them. Every utility knife that you buy in a block is 5 or 6 inches long and it's this fucking thin and it doesn't do anything. It's not utility for anything. It's too short to be a chef knife. It's too long to use as a paring knife. So I was like, if I'm going to make a utility knife, it's going to be an actual, because in my mind, if someone has a utility knife, like the utility knife is a knife everyone's wife goes for. Every fucking time. It's this big. It's not too big. Again, they always want 8 inches until it's a fucking knife. Then that's way too fucking big, isn't it? Then it's 4 inches is just perfect, isn't it? So I wanted to make a knife that was, if you look at that utility knife, it's kind of tall. So it's got just enough where you can cut on a cutting board a little bit, especially if you're a woman with smaller hands. But it's also perfect. Yeah, you see what I mean? Like you could still cut on the cutting board. You can, because that's going to be the knife. Yeah, that's going to be like your wife or your girlfriend's she's going to cut open the Amazon box. She's going to cut the crust off the kids' sandwiches. She's going to cut apples with. She's going to cut onions with. So when I made that knife, I kept running it by my wife. I was like, "What do you think of this?" Till she was like, "Oh, this is it," and I was like, "Done." That knife was specifically designed for the home, like the house, like. Yeah. That's going to be the knife that people, like you said, you're going to grab it 99% of the time because it's just big enough. Yeah, it's just big enough to do pretty much everything, but it's not, and it's small enough if you wanted to peel something in hand, you can still do it.
Yeah. Hey, I had a question on your Steadfast. Do you do mine came with a leather sheath, but do you do Kydex?
I started doing Kydex, like 7-8 months ago, I think.
You make your own Kydex?
Yeah,
or somebody does it for you. I need to get I want a Kydex because it came with a leather, but I'm not a huge fan of the leather. I'd rather get a Kydex if I can.
Well, just send it to me. I'll do your Kydex. Yeah, I started doing here. Oh, I got them. Yeah, see? Started doing Kydex.
So you need the knife back to make it, or is it just a universal?
Yeah. No, so it's custom made to the sheath. So the Kydex gets heated up and it gets pressed to the actual to the knife itself.
I'll DM you on Instagram. I'll just ship it back to you if you can do that. That'd be cool.
Yeah, it takes me like 30 minutes, not even to do that. Yeah, I started doing that just because those leather sheaths are expensive, man.
Yeah,
they're like $40 a piece.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah. I prefer Kydex usually, actually too, but yeah.
It was. I just had it
like a cross draw and the leather sheath. I mean, you pretty much it's in a belt and saying, you only got one way to carry it.
Exactly. That's what it was. It was. I had a lot of guys asking for Kydex, And then it was just I'm trying to be more profitable in my business without raising prices. I'm trying to keep things in a certain price point. So the first thing I looked at was like, well, I can save myself like $25 if I start making Kydex myself, right? Yeah. What it cost me, $15 some odd to make a sheath versus $40 to buy leather. If someone wants a leather sheath, I just let them know, hey, it's going to be $40. That's just, it'll be extra if that's what you want. If not, cool. And most guys prefer Kydex anyway. I like Kydex because, like, especially with this model, this EDC one, come on, if it'll pop out. This one, it's a slimmer one, so I pocket carry that. I can put it in my pocket. You can't pocket carry like a big ass sheath like that.
Right.
Because I've never been a fixed blade guy. So carrying a knife on my hip in some places, like, that's weird. Like here in Georgia, it's whatever. Nobody gives a shit. But I wanted to be able to put it in my pocket. So that's why I started doing the sheaths. Yeah, and I started using, and then I use these are gun holster clips.
Yep. So you could do either. You could put it on your belt or in your pocket with that. Yeah.
So exactly. So so again, one of the cool things about these Kydex is Holstex. They're actually here in Peachtree City, Georgia. So this is all American made stuff, which is dope. It's just Phillips. Mm-hmm. So it's a Chicago style screw. So I ship them out right hand pocket, or if it's a custom order, I ask them, how do you want it set? Now, you can just unscrew these things and pop it in any way you want. Yeah, you can left side, right side, whatever. But I ask them, are you going to carry a belt or you want a pocket carry? And I'll just send it out whichever way they want it.
Right.
Yeah,
makes it a lot easier.
New rage, right? For EDC carry.
What is?
Fixed blades, small fixed blades for EDC.
I know, man. I kind of feel like I'm a little bit to do with that. Like all of a sudden, everybody started liking carrying fixed blades, and I'm like, awesome. Yeah. Please come buy fixed blades.
I'll tell you, Steve. First time I saw one of your knives, I was thinking, I know you're going to make a good knife because I knew your background. I knew you had the all the technical knowledge and everything. But I remember the first time I saw one of your knives. One thing with me, I won't buy a knife if I think it's ugly or I don't like the looks of it. And my jaw dropped when I saw your first knife. I was like, man, look at all the liners and stuff. It is beautiful. I was really astounded how nice it was.
Well, I appreciate it. That was the hard part, is making them look pretty. Because it's funny. The more I've been doing this, the more I notice this. It's like the more I appreciate like Chris Reeve knives or Hinderer or a lot of these older school guys, because, and this is not a dig at anybody. I mean this because I am not good at like knife design. This is not a dig at anyone. But especially like I love that there's a lot of like YouTube guys getting into, LTK did, designing knives. You see them designing knives with companies. And if you look at a lot of them, a lot of guys will go for functionality because they're function first kind of guys, right? They want it to work. It's really easy to design a knife that's functionally and works well. It's really hard to design one that's functionally works well and looks really cool at the same time.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Especially in the folder world, because there's so many, everything's kind of been done. So it's like, if you want to make a super functional knife, it's going to look kind of fucking retarded. It won't look like, it won't really flow very well. It'll work. It'll fit in your hand really well, but it'll kind of look kind of odd. If you look at something, then you look at something like a Chris Reeve or a Hinderer, the knives look incredible and they fit your hand like a glove. Like they do both. It's a very hard thing to do. To do both. So that's why I have a lot of respect for guys that do like really good classic designs, because it's really fucking hard to do.
So tell me about your heat treat protocol. I mean, you do your own heat treating, and do you see yourself continuing to do your own heat treating in the future?
Well, matter of fact, LTK, I started my own heat treating business. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so that was, I don't know, that popped up. I had friends that I was heat treating for, and I don't charge them because I feel weird charging my friends for stuff, which gets me in trouble because, like, they get mad at me for it. So I was like, well, if I'm going to do this for my friends, then maybe I should just see if I can open this up to, this might be a niche that guys need, because I hear all the complaints about Peters and stuff like that. I'm definitely going to always, the goal is to always do that. Unless it was an extreme situation where, like, unless I could work one-on-one with a heat treater, right? And they would do exactly my protocol. Like, let's say when I get into folders, and it's fucking 100 knives, right? And I need those done in a production or 200 or whatever. If I could work with a heat treater, that would follow protocol to spec. And then obviously I get the blades back and I test them and I sharpen them and I poke them and everything looks right and feels right. Maybe in that situation, but other than that, anything coming straight out of my hands is going to be done here in my ovens always, for sure.
Hey, do you see in your future where you may want to actually produce a production set of kitchen knives that are not handmade by you, but they're made in the USA by, let's say, White River somewhere?
Yeah, so
that's name on as a maybe like $100 a knife instead of $300 a knife or something like that, and you could do a run of them if you could do it right.
Yeah, so that's been something I've been pursuing since probably like the first year I got into this. So that came to me because of where I come from, is from actual kitchen guys. So cooks and chefs don't make a lot of money.
Yeah.
So it's usually only chefs that have like the income, or a sous chef that'll have like, or is dumb enough that'll spend a couple $100 on a knife. So my goal has always been, and I've talked to a couple bigger manufacturers that you guys would know, but I don't want to put it out there yet because I don't know if I can, about doing a line like that, about doing a machine ground line of knives that I could sell for like, the goal would be like $125 to $150. If I can figure out a spot, if I could get there, I think that's like more accessible to a lot. Like it could compete with I can make one that's better than a Wusthof, which is in that price range, with a way better heat treat and a way better grind. Yeah, that's definitely been on my radar for a long time.
That's interesting.
Is making that, and then like the handles would be, I would do like bolt-on handles instead of like epoxied handles, because that's a lot. I can have the handles all milled and then just basically the line that I want to do is like 99% of custom makers you see out there do for their $300 or $400 knives. Yeah. So all those fucking perfectly ground looking knives that you see that have the screw on handles and single piece of G10, they're water jetted out, they're machine ground, and then they're screwed on with bolts, and then they hand sharpen them with a belt. That's how they get them to look like that. There are some chef knives out there that are $300, $400, $500 that are machine ground like that. Actually, it's pretty wild. Yeah, wow. Which bothers me a lot.
But I just thought that you come up with specs like, okay, so I want a line like, only this much behind the edge, this all the way up. I want this kind of grind. I want this kind of handle. I want this kind of protocol on the heat treat. I want that. And if you could put it together, then you could have a whole line where people could buy it at, a fraction or half.
Exactly. Yes. The trouble with that is twofold. The first one was, up until like a year or two ago, there wasn't. So in order to do that type of thing, the knives would need to be heat treated, right? And then ground after heat treat. In order to get them thin enough, right? So again, they're not going to be ground like my knives, but I'm going to try to get them as close as I can, right? They're going to be flat ground, so it's not going to have the great food separation. But again, this is a $125 to $150 knife versus a custom, right? This is something that you would pay the same amount for a Wusthof, but it's going to be tenfold better. The problem was, so in order to do that, you need what's called, maybe not the only machine, but you need what's called a burger grinder. And it's a disc grinder that grinds hardened steel like that. The problem is there was none really in the U.S. up until a couple years ago. The guys that have it now still haven't really got it up and running yet. The other issue with that is in order to do that, it's got to be a minimum of a 200-piece run. So coming up with the capital to buy 200 blanks and heat treat 200 blanks and then have 200 blanks around is a big chunk. So it's in the future, I just need I don't have any any relatives that are rich.
Yeah,
Maybe my wife does. I don't know.
I mean, you could do a pre-sale or a Kickstarter.
I was thinking about that.
Because really, I mean, look at all the guys like, what's that, TW Price and others that are doing Kickstarters. Even major manufacturers now.
Kaiser just did it. Kaiser's doing it on that little...
That's so crazy to me.
I know.
That is so fucking crazy to me. That I saw it fucking Jared's live, and it fucking that made me so fucking mad. I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, who's giving money to Kaiser for a Kickstarter?
One time I had a conversation with Jason Doon there at DLT, and I told him my dream would be if the American companies would get together or some really rich guy could get together, build a factory to eat OEM knives in the U.S. so guys like LTK don't have to go over to China to get his knives made, you know?
Good luck with that.
And there's just no
they don't want to waste their money on low dollar shit like that. They can make aerospace parts, they can make oil field parts, they can
but I'm talking about
they can make a lot more money.
He's right. LTK is right. I know what he's saying. LTK is right because the thing is this is the materials, the machining materials like the CNC mills and stuff are like fucking $250,000 pieces of equipment. Yep. So in order to do that, you need like business, right? Steady business. Those machines have to keep running all the time. And the problem is like, can you line up enough business? Now, here's the thing. I don't know. I guess I don't know if everybody knows. River's Edge Cutlery has an OEM department. Yeah, I guess nobody knows that. They've had an OEM department for like 2 fucking years. They just haven't put out a fucking knife yet because I don't know. They're fucking retarded and they won't ask anyone for help, and they've been spinning their wheels for 2 years. They're probably about to shut it down, to be honest with you, because they haven't made this. I think they made like a fucking paperweight or a pen or some shit, like because they can't figure it out, which is crazy. Because there's again being on this side of the table, I know so many fucking huge knife makers. I've talked to so many guys with massive companies, and so many guys would be so willing to help those dudes out, but I don't know what their issue is or what it is, but they can't. There's a few knife makers out there, guys that you know that were supposed to have runs done by them that has never materialized because they can't get their shit straight. And speaking of OEM, how do I say this? I may or may not be working with an American OEM on a folder.
On a what folder?
Folder.
On a folder. Yeah, on a folder. So I don't know exactly when it'll be done. Probably pretty quick once I get everything rolling in the next month. But it's going to be the biggest fuck you to Chinese OEMs. Like it's going to be.
Is it Medford?
No, it's not Medford. No, not Greg. I wouldn't.
Spyderco, right?
Yeah, Spyderco. Yeah, there you go. Order a fucking. There's a fucking 1,000-piece run minimum right there. That's crazy. All those. I don't know how those guys do that. No, it's with a. You guys all know who he is and who they are, and it's a very well respected. It's the only guy I would trust to do this with.
Okay, so we talked about. Oh my God, we talked about the. Yeah.
There it is. My wife made those.
Nice.
What do you got there, Sean? Come on, let's see.
My wife made those.
What's that?
Let's see that again, Sean. What was that?
The blue balls.
Oh my God! There you go. You got to send that to Steve. I got to send.
No,
I got it from Steve.
Yeah, my wife made. Yeah, my wife made them for Blade Show. This last year, she made shot glasses with ball sacks on them.
Oh,
that's awesome.
I still got some left. I'm gonna bring them again.
And you know what? You could work for Doge now because you got big balls.
Big balls.
That's right. Hairy balls. Yes.
Big hairy balls.
Fucking big balls and hairy balls.
You see that meme of South Park and they all got their balls in a wheelbarrow and they're going down the street?
I feel like I'm living in a movie right now. Every day I wake up.
Oh my God, it's great.
It's the great. Like if you'd have told me 4 years ago that Elon Musk, the autistic billionaire would have a group of other autistic genius kids that are like 18 running through the federal government, just tearing into every fucking department, I would have been like, no fucking way.
Right.
This has been like the happiest month of my life as far as that goes. Watching these fucking nerds just rip through, like lift up every rock and watch the roaches scatter has been.
That's exactly.
Every day I wake up, I go on X and I'm like, what did they find today? Oh look, 30 billion people on Social Security that are dead. Shocker! Like it's just, and then watching the media lose their fucking minds over this guy's not qualified, that guy's not qualified, blah blah blah. Well, listening to them say hairy balls on national television or big balls on national television is amazing. It's cathartic. It is amazing. He just sits there trolling them all.
I saw the Google search for criminal defense attorneys in Washington D.C. has been up like 600%.
I mean, in the meme that they have about these guys, they showed their name and one's got a Harvard and MIT. Okay, dude. These guys are Stanford and these guys have, and some of them have already started like 5 or 6 companies.
Yes,
freaking geniuses.
And they said these kids they're not qualified. One of those kids developed an AI program that deciphered the fucking Dead Sea Scrolls.
Yes.
When he was like 16, like get fucked, okay? Get fucked. I'm pretty sure he can rifle through Social Security numbers or fucking look down a P&L list. Like it's okay. Like,
well,
I'm pretty sure he's done
over the line criticizing Social Security checks going out to 150-year-olds. I'm sure there's
fucking. Yeah, or what was it? Almost $3 trillion when the Medicare overseas. What?
Oh, and then what came out today was aid to dependent children to illegal.
Yeah.
Billions.
Yeah.
I got to jump off in about 5 minutes, just so you know.
Yeah,
my old lady is on her way home with dinner, so.
Yeah, we probably need to, to wrap it up, I imagine, because it's going to take me about 3.5 weeks to edit it.
At least you know how to edit.
It'll be like, you know how many minutes of Blazing Saddles is fit for woke TV? Like,
yeah.
That's the opening of that.
And that'll be like this podcast is like, okay, hey Wes, I'll call him later tonight. Hey, I think I got about 6-7 minutes.
It'll be like, hey guys, we're here. And then it'll be like, hey guys, so we're here. This is fucking Steve and Sean, and then it'll be like, all right, guys, you guys have a good day.
Actually, we need to do that. We need to do this more often and just talk. Talk knives, but throw in whatever. And it sounds like fun. It does really sound like fun. I knew this was going to be fucked up today.
It was going to go so quick.
I know, but
look, you knew what you were getting. You know what you were getting into, LTK. Come on, you knew bringing me on here. What was happening?
Oh, I was looking forward to it. It's like rubbing my hands together, like.
You didn't send me any NDAs or nothing, so I just thought it was open season. I received no coaching prior.
And you know what? I will need to get. I want to put things down below how they can best contact you to have a nice thing.
Oh, okay, yeah. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, you can send it. You can either email it to me or you can, whatever you want. But I'll get with you. But yeah, I want to do that because I want people to know that I don't know how many people really know about your knives other than a lot of people that have listened to you in the past, but maybe others don't. But
hey, the more the better.
I like that. Bye-bye, everybody, and it's good to talk to you. And all of you guys, balls!
Fucking balls, exactly.
Yeah, good seeing you guys.
You too, man. Yeah, let's do this again sometime.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Down below, get a hold of Steve. Get you one of these awesome kitchen
Right.
knives.
Guaranteed to make you a better chef or your money back.
That's right. That's right. Take care.
All right, see you
Later.
guys. Bye-bye.